Hi and welcome to this year's Copenhagen Sakura Festival 2021. As you know, we are all virtual this year due to the current situation.
We are Kim and Maria from the
Kimono Club Denmark.
Exactly, and we usually do a show, half-an-hour show presentation of different kinds of kimono, but of course this year we're all digital.
Yes.
So we're going to try to give you
a different perspective this year. So we are having a small presentation with 6 different kimonos and they're like formalities. And I think we should start with yours. I think we should start with your kimono, what you're wearing, Kim. You're wearing basically one of the most common kimonos that we will see. It's called a Komon kimono, and Komon means that it's a pattern that repeats all over the kimono.
And another thing about mine is that it's very seasonally proper in that way that we're in the cherry blossom season. And this is, the picture here is falling cherry blossoms. That means when they're finished blooming, they lose their flowers. And one of the things that you often do with the kimono is that you go and like anticipate the next step of the season. Now we've got cherry blossoms all over, they're blooming, but we don't want to really compete with nature. So we say, okay, what's coming next? And you say about it, it's got the common, my obi, which is an informal obi, a nagoya in the
regular
most common otaiko drum knot. Another thing is that kimonos are often they tell something about the wearer, like the wearer's age. I've got a few years under my obi, which means that my kimono, it's more common for women of my age to wear a kind of a more quiet, not completely emblazoned with pattern kimono. And this one in that way fits quite well with the age that I have as well. Should we talk about yours?
Yeah, I'm wearing a much more vintage outfit. No, actually I'm wearing what you typically would wear in Japan when you graduate university as a female. I'm wearing a yabane kimono, which is why I call it vintage. It's not vintage itself, but the pattern is a copy of the typical yabane or arrow pattern used on the school uniforms back in the 1920s. They were also paired with this type of kimono skirt. It's called a hakama. Besides that, I'm actually wearing a full vintage under kimono, which is a juban. And this is very colorful. Modern jubans, like we have here, classic polyester, one color, typically pastel pink. Is what you wear now because it's more like low-key, it's like lower profile, and you're not supposed to show your under kimono. But in old times you were. So that's why they were bold, big colors, a lot of patterns.
And actually there's a renaissance now of this look. And a lot of times it's with the fuisode, so you've got the long sleeves and the hakama, and it's a very popular look for younger women at the moment.
Should we start with our first model?
Yeah, let's do that.
And our first kimono is the male kimono. It consists of a jacket, which is called the haori, and the inner kimono. And then, of course, the undergarment, which is called the juban. Then it's all tied together with the ubi sash, which is the belt.
The sash, by the way, if you turn around, is...
We can take it off.
Yeah.
Let's take it off.
The sash is tied in a knot that's called the clam knot. It's also a very typical way of holding the male kimono together.
The male haoris are typically, or the male kimono jackets, are typically adorned with elaborate pictures on the inside. In old time, typically the males would have like more erotic pictures in because it's private and nobody would see besides the wearer.
It has like a meaning, it's got something in it that nobody around you is seeing, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
And of course the people, the woman or the few people that see it, they also know it's there.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
So the next kimono we are going to gonna see is a irumuji, which means a fully colored kimono in one color. This type of kimono is a semi-formal one, and it can be dressed up and down. So typically you would wear it on a dinner out, in the theater, or for like a jubilee or more formal birthday parties. And of course, you use it for the tea ceremony.
One of the things you use the irumuji for is showing, because it's a toned down kimono. You use it to kind of show your respect for either the tea ceremony or the ikebana arranging of flowers. Like you are the presenter, but it's the tea ceremony that actually is the middle. So you keep yourself behind it. You notice she has no jewelry on. I think it's only your wedding ring. It's tradition to use when you wear an irumuji. This one is dressed up a little bit because it's got a very nice obi, a bit formal obi. Actually, it's not that formal.
It's not that formal. It's because it's a Nagoya obi, which is a casual obi, but you can dress it up depending on the color. And the reason why we know this is a semi-formal obi is because of the gold.
Yeah.
As soon as it becomes more glittery and more fancy, it becomes more formal, which we will see later.
Would you turn around and show us the back? Because this is also like the most common obi knot. It's called the otaiko, the drum knot. You can see it goes like this. Often your obi will be without pattern, except in the front, and then on this piece that you show, especially Nagoya that are not so formal.
Yeah. What we have here is a kamon, or like a family crest. The more family crest a kimono has, it's more formal. So the more formal one for females who are married is the kurotome soto, which we're not showing today, but it has up to 5 kamon or 5 mon. So irumuji can have 5 mons and can be very formal, but mostly they have 1, as we see here in the back. Lastly, for the obi, before we're finishing, is that the obi here is out of season. It means it's non-seasonal. Obis can be seasonal and some is not. And the reason why this one is not seasonal is because we find plum flowers without any like branch, so it's not connected, as well as chrysanthemum, which is not branched.
And a plum flower in Japanese tradition is a winter flower, and chrysanthemum is a fall flower. And when you've got both, it means that you can wear it, which of course kimono artists, they will choose a kimono that passes to the exact season. But of course normal people, most of them can't afford to have that many kimono. So it's quite common that you've got a kimono or an obi that you can wear in different seasons and still be here. Thanks a lot.
So the next kimono we're going to look at is a homongi, or a visiting kimono. This type of kimono is quite formal. It's a kimono you would wear if you are a guest for a wedding, or if you are going to a formal occasion, such as very fancy dinners, or
your daughter or son's graduation.
Graduations, yes, exactly. Typically what we can define a homongi with is that we have a pattern below the waist, as we can see here. We have a pattern on the left shoulder and on the left sleeve, and on the back we will have a little bit of pattern on the right shoulder.
Yeah.
And again, the pattern will continue across the back seam and to the other side, which gives off a full pattern but in smaller parts. So in this pattern we are having a non-seasonal homongi because it's having fans on, and motifs from Tale of Genji, which is a very famous Japanese story, and it's also one of the first novels ever written, also by a woman.
Also by a woman, yes.
Which makes it's non-seasonal. And again, having a non-seasonal kimono when you don't have a big economy is a very good thing, especially when it's a visiting kimono, because you can pair it. This one is dressed up fairly high because we are wearing a very quite embroidered obi with golden and silver threads. As we mentioned earlier, as soon as there is gold, silver or any glitter, it becomes formal, and you can add your formality on your kimono by adding glitter. We can see even here on her obi-age, the silver scarf, the silk scarf in the top, that we have actually gold pattern here as well. This one is also non-seasonal. It has plum flowers, but with no attachment, which means no branch.
Maybe we should say something about the shoes.
Yeah.
The zori now. This is the common, this is the traditional way of wearing. You've got a pair of socks, tabi socks, and in a shoe, a zori. Especially for younger women, you can easily have a very high heel or a high wedge. That's also more formal. Maybe we should say something about the obijime, because in a kimono there are no buttons. The kimono is held on by a series of, they can see actually in our dressing video, a series of different, you call them koshihimo, some ties that you bind in different ways that hold the kimono. And the last tie is this obijime. And if you notice the ends of the obijime, it's traditionally you put the ends upward to connotate that it's a good mood or some, if you were doing something very sad or serious like a funeral, you would put them so that they pointed downwards.
Lastly, we should cover actually the outerwear for a woman's kimono. As we saw earlier on the main model, he was wearing a jacket, a haori, which was had a very beautiful pattern inside. This is, as I mentioned, a female haori, which is not really anything on the inside. However, typically on the outside, they are adorned with beautiful patterns or embroideries. So
this is a very simple one. Yeah, and that's the homongi, visiting kimono.
Which is the most common formal kimono you would see in Japan or at any other occasions. The furisore, which we'll see later, is not that common. You see them a few times a year. But this one, you would, if you go to Ginza in Tokyo, you will see this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So this kimono we're having here is the most formal we're going to see today, and it's the furisore, or called the long-sleeved kimono. So you can see here, the kimono is adorned with very long sleeves, and these are not even the longest ones, as you can see. Furisore kimonos are typically very, very heavily patterned, and it can be with like wax designs or painted patterns, as we can see on this one. And typically they are also non-season, because they are the kimono for the unmarried woman for special occasions, weddings,
Coming of age day in January.
And if you are having a matchmaking meeting and meeting your future husband and his parents, it can be a reason to wear it. What we can see here is that they're typically wearing very auspicious and very strong patterns. In this one we have a lot of beautiful flowers and butterflies. And what we cannot see here, which is very difficult because the kimono is worn, is that there is waved in big clouds. Actually, maybe we can.
Can we
view straight? Can you take both of your arms up? Yeah, there we can see. So we can see here there is both water waves on the kimono in the pink, and then on the back, on the top of the sleeves, we have these beautiful light clouds going along it, which turn down to gold as further down we go. These type of kimonos is also used with a very heavy obi, which is called a fukuro obi or amaru obi, and it's obis that is very, very heavily brocaded or patterned And typically it's not a light pattern, but a very heavy one, as we can see on this one, with gold, silver, and so on. And they are typically made in these very elaborate knots, as we can see here. And this knot we are having today is called the lucky bag knot, or a gold knot, which is meant it has to look like these Chinese money pouches. And if we turn it around, the obiage on this one which is the silk cloth here, is different on the furisode compared to the regular one, because it's made of what we call shibori, or not dyed. So it's very thick and have this very knobby texture, which makes it more full and more like young to look at.
Yes, and at the same time more luxurious, because shibori, it means that every little piece that's not dyed has been bound with a piece of thread. So it's very labor intensive. It's a more luxurious kind of cloth.
Yes. And lastly, again about the obi, as you can see, it's very heavily brocaded, but it's not as heavy as some of the ones you use on wedding kimonos. And lastly, if we look at her collar, sorry. The collar is also heavy brocaded with a very deep neck, which also gives up this very youthful and this very beautiful aesthetic of a young girl. Plus, in Japan, they believe that when the lower the bag is on the kimono, the collar, the more skin you show and the more sexier it is.
If you turn sideways and show the way that it can be even deeper in the back, but you see this line that goes kind of down. It's a very youthful, elegant. An older woman like me doesn't wear her neck that far down, but the youth does. I haven't been in and talking about underneath the kimonos. You have underwear on that you can actually see when Maria dressed Julia. But under the kimono is a juben, a kimono to protect the kimono, and the juben that fits with the long-sleeved kimono has, of course, long sleeves. It's always a more simple print, a more simple kind of fabric, but jubens can also be with furisode, quite luxurious and quite decorated, quite painted. This one isn't, but
A little bit?
a little bit.
We have wisteria flowers on this one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One more thing, if you turn a little to the side, in Julia's hair, it's very common to put all kinds of flowers, and this bira is typical. You'd also use with a furisode. It's kind of like more showy, more falling. There's a lot going on in the hair as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And thanks, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching,
Yeah.
and hope to see you next year.
Mm.
If you have any questions about what we're doing, want to try kimonos, or this whole presentation, you can contact us at our Instagram, kimono_bk.
We leave a little link to it
A
here
link
on the
below.
film. Yeah. And thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, bye.